Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, where we're taking a journey through the history of the universe. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. A river of nectar flowing. Okay, Sanatana Goswami has written his prayer glorifying Srimad-Bhagavatam, which we read every day. Repetition of a good thing is a good thing for our edification and for the thoroughness of our understanding and depth of our understanding. And it goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad-Bhagavata Prabhu Kalidwan Duditaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad-Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Shri Krishna himself. Madhika Bando Matsangin Madguro Mad Mahadana Mad Nistadaka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhu tadayin atini chochatakara hanamun shagadatin mam premnarit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Okay, we reached the 5th canto, 10th chapter. The discussion between Bharata and Maharaja Rahugana. Summary. In this chapter, Bharat Maharaj, now Bharata, was successfully accepted by King Rahugana, the ruler of the states known as Sindhu and Saurvida. The king forced Bharata to carry his palanquin and chastised him because he did not carry it properly. A carrier of King Rahugana's palanquin was needed, and to fulfill this need, the chief carriers found Bharata as the most likely person to do the work. He was therefore forced to carry the palanquin. Bharata, however, did not protest this proud order, but humbly accepted the job and carried the palanquin. While carrying it, however, he was very careful to see that he did not step on an ant. And whenever he saw one, he would stop until the ant had passed. Because of this, he could not keep pace with the other carriers. The king within the palanquin became very disturbed and chastised Bharata with filthy language. But Bharata, being completely freed from the bodily conception, did not protest. He proceeded carrying the palanquin. When he continued as before, the king threatened him with punishment and being threatened by the king, Jada Bharat began to talk. He protested against the filthy language used by the king when the king chastised him. And the king, hearing the instructions of Jada Bharat, was awakened to his real knowledge. When he came to his consciousness, he understood that he had offended a great learned and saintly person. At that time, he very humbly and respectfully prayed to Jada Bharat. He now wanted to understand the deep meaning of the philosophical words used by Jada Bharat, and with great sincerity, he begged his pardon. He admitted that if one offends the lotus feet of a pure devotee, he is immediately punished by the trident of Lord Shiva. Text 1. Sri Shukadev Goswami continued, "My dear king, after this, King Rahugana, ruler of the states known as Sindhu and Sovira, was going to Kapilashram. When the king's chief palanquin carriers reached the banks of the river Ikshumati, they needed another carrier. Therefore they began searching for someone, and by chance they came upon Jada Bharat. They considered the fact that Jada Bharat was very young and strong and had firm limbs. Like cows and asses, he was quite fit to carry loads. Thinking in this way, although the great soul Jada Bharat was unfit for such work, they nonetheless unhesitatingly forced him to carry the palanquin." Text 2. The palanquin, however, was very erratically carried by Jada Bharat due to his sense of non-violence. As he stepped forward, he checked before him every mystic power. My fault, my bad. Hare Krishna. Consequently, anyway, as he stepped forward, he checked before him every 3 feet to see whether he was about to step on ants. Consequently, he could not keep pace with the other carriers. Due to this, the palanquin was shaking, and King Rahugana immediately asked the carriers, "Why are you carrying this palanquin unevenly? Better carry it properly." Purport. Although Jada Bharat was forced to carry the palanquin, he did not give up his sympathetic feelings toward the poor ants passing on the road. A devotee of the Lord does not forget his devotional service and other favorable activities, even when he is in a most distressful condition. Jada Bharat was a qualified Brahmana, highly elevated in spiritual knowledge, yet he was forced. Hare Krishna, Dr. G. Haribol. How nice to see you. Hare Krishna. A Vaishnava is never envious or unnecessarily violent. There were many ants on the path, but Jada Bharat took care by looking ahead 3 feet. When the ants were no longer in his way, he would place his foot on the ground. A Vaishnava is always kind at heart to all living entities. In his Sankhya Yoga, Lord Kapila explains, Sudidak Sarvadehinam. Living entities assume different bodily forms. Those who are not Vaishnavas consider only human society worthy of their sympathy. But Krishna claims to be the Supreme Father of all life forms. Consequently, the Vaishnava takes care not to annihilate untimely or unnecessarily any life form. All living entities have to fulfill a certain duration for being encaged in a particular type of material body. They have to finish the duration allotted a particular body before being promoted or evolved to another body. Killing an animal or any other living being simply places an impediment in the way of his completing his term of imprisonment in a certain body. One should therefore not kill bodies for one's sense gratification, for this will implicate one in sinful activity. Text 3. When the palanquin carriers heard the threatening words of Maharaja Rahugana, they became very afraid of his punishment and began to speak to him as follows. Purport. According to political science, a king sometimes tries to pacify his subordinates, sometimes chastises them, sometimes divides them, and sometimes rewards them. In this way the king rules his subordinates. The bearers of the palanquin could understand that the king was angry and that he would chastise them. Text 4. O Lord, please note that we are not at all negligent in discharging our duties. We have been faithfully carrying this palanquin according to your desire, but this man who has been recently engaged to work with us cannot walk very swiftly. Therefore we are not able to carry the palanquin with him. Purport. The other palanquin carriers were Shudras, whereas Jada Bharat was not only a high caste Brahmana, but also a great devotee. Shudras do not sympathize with other living beings, but a Vaishnava cannot act like a Shudra. Whenever a Shudra and a Brahmana Vaishnava are combined, there will certainly be imbalance in the execution of duties. The Shudras were walking with the palanquin without at all caring for the ants on the ground, but Jada Bharat could not act like a Shudra, and therefore difficulty arose. Text 5. King Rahugana could understand the speeches given by the carriers who were afraid of being punished. He could also understand that simply due to the fault of one person, the palanquin was not being carried properly. Knowing this perfectly well and hearing their appeal, he became a little angry, although he was very advanced in political science and was very experienced. His anger arose due to his inborn nature as a king. Actually, King Rahugana's mind was covered by the motive passion, and he therefore spoke as follows to Jada Bharat, whose Brahman effulgence was not clearly visible, being covered like a fire covered by ashes. Purport. The distinction between Rajaguna and Sattvaguna is explained in this verse. Although the king was very upright and advanced in political science and governmental management, he was nonetheless in the mode of passion. Despite all kinds of injustice, endured because of his deaf and dumb display, remained silent by the strength of his spiritual advancement. Nonetheless, his Brahmateja, his Brahman effulgence, was indistinctly visible in his person. Text 6. 5.10.6. King Rahugana told Jada Bharat, "How troublesome this is, my dear brother. You certainly appear very fatigued because you have carried this palanquin alone without assistance for a long time and for a long distance. Besides that, due to your old age, you have become greatly troubled. My dear friend, I see that you are not very firm, nor very strong and stout. Aren't your fellow carriers cooperating with you?" Diplomat. In this way, the king criticized Jada Bharat with sarcastic words. Yet, despite being criticized in this way, Jada Bharat had no bodily conception of the situation. He knew that he was not the body, for he had attained his spiritual identity. He was neither fat, nor lean, nor thin, nor had he anything to do with a lump of matter, a combination of the 5 gross and 3 subtle elements. He had nothing to do with the material body and its 2 hands and legs. In other words, he had completely realized his spiritual identity, Aham Brahmasmi. He was therefore unaffected by this sarcastic criticism from the king. Without saying anything, he continued carrying the palanquin as before. Purport. Jada Bharat was completely liberated. He did not even care when the dacoits attempted to kill his body. He knew that he certainly was not the body. Even if the body were killed, he would not have cared, for he was thoroughly convinced of the proposition found in Bhagavad Gita 2.20, Nahanyate, hanyamane, sharire. He knew that he could not be killed, even if his body were killed. Although he did not protest, the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his agent could not tolerate the injustice of the dacoits. Therefore he was saved by the mercy of Krishna, and the dacoits were killed. In this case, while carrying the palanquin, he also knew that he was not the body. This body was very strong and stout, in sound condition, and quite competent to carry the palanquin. Due to his being freed from the bodily conception, the sarcastic words of the king did not at all affect him. The body is created according to one's karma, and material nature supplies the ingredients for the development of a certain type of body. The soul of the body covers the soul of the body covers is different from the bodily construction. Therefore, anything favorable or mischievous done to the body does not affect the spirit soul. The Vedic injunction is asango yayam purusha. The spirit soul is always unaffected by material arrangements. Text 7. Thereafter, when the king saw that the palanquin was being shaken by the carriers, he became very angry and said, "You rascal, what are you doing? Are you dead despite the life within your body? Do you not know that I am your master? You are disregarding me and are not carrying out my order. For this disobedience, I shall now punish you, just as Yamaraj, the superintendent of death, punishes sinful people. I shall give you proper treatment so that you will come to your senses and do the correct thing." Text 8. Thinking himself a king, King Rahugana was in the bodily conception and was influenced by material nature's modes of passion and ignorance. Due to madness, he chastised Jada Bharat with uncalled for and contradictory words. Jada Bharat was a topmost devotee and the dear abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although the king considered himself very learned, he did not know about the position of an advanced devotee situated in devotional service, nor did he know his characteristics. Jada Bharat was the residence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He always carried the form of the Lord within his heart. He was the dear friend of all living beings, and he did not entertain any bodily conception. He therefore smiled and spoke the following words. Purport. The distinction between a person in the bodily conception and a person beyond the bodily conception is presented in this verse. In the bodily conception, King Rahugana considered himself a king and chastised Jada Bharat in so many unwanted ways. Being self-realized, Jada Bharat, who was fully situated on the transcendental platform, did not at all become angry. Instead, he smiled and began to deliver his teachings to King Rahugana. A highly advanced Vaishnava devotee is a friend to all living entities, and consequently, he is a friend to his enemies also. In fact, he does not consider anyone to be his enemy. Suridak sarvadehinam. Sometimes a Vaishnava becomes superficially angry at a non-devotee, but this is good for the non-devotee. We have several examples of this in Vedic literature. Once Narada became angry with the two sons of Kuvera, Nalakuvara and Manigriva, and he chastised them by turning them into trees. The result was that later they were liberated by Lord Sri Krishna. The devotee is situated on the absolute platform, and when he is angry or pleased, there is no difference, for in either case he bestows his benediction. Text 9. The great Brahmana Jada Bharata said, "My dear king and hero, whatever you have spoken sarcastically is certainly true. Actually, these are not simply words of chastisement, for the body is the carrier. The load carried by the body does not belong to me, for I am the spirit soul. There is no contradiction in your statements because I am different from the body. I am not the carrier of the palanquin. The body is the carrier. Certainly, as you have hinted, I have not labored carrying the palanquin, for I am detached from the body. You have said that I am not stout and strong, and these words are befitting a person who does not know the distinction between the body and the soul. The body may be fat or thin, but no learned man would say such things of the spirit soul. As far as spirit soul is concerned, I am neither fat nor skinny. Therefore you are correct when you say that I am not very stout. Also, if the object of this journey and the path leading there were mine, there would be many troubles for me. But because they relate not to me, but to my body, there is no trouble at all." Purport. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that one who is advanced in spiritual knowledge is not disturbed by the pains and pleasures of the material body. The material body is completely separate from the spirit soul, and the pains and pleasures of the body are superfluous. The practice of austerity and penance is meant for understanding the distinction between the body and the soul, and how the soul can be unaffected by the pleasures and pains of the body. Jada Bharata was actually situated on a platform of self-realization. He was completely aloof from the bodily conception. Therefore, he immediately took his position and convinced the king that whatever contradictory things the king had said about his body did not actually apply to him as a spirit soul. Text 10. Fatness, thinness, bodily and mental distress, thirst, hunger, fear, disagreement, desires for material happiness, old age, sleep, attachment for material possessions, anger, lamentation, illusion, and identification of the body with the self are all transformations of the material covering of the spirit soul. A person absorbed in the material bodily conception is affected by these things. But I am free from all bodily conceptions. Consequently, I am neither fat nor skinny, nor anything else you have mentioned. Purport. Srila Narottam Das Thakur has sung, "Deha smriti nahi yar, sangsara bandhana kahantar." One who is spiritually advanced has no connection with the body or with the bodily actions and reactions. When one comes to understand that he is not the body and therefore is neither fat nor skinny, one attains to the topmost platform of spiritual realization. When one is not spiritually realized, the bodily conception entangles one in the material world. At the present moment, all human society is laboring under the bodily conception. Therefore, in the Shastras, people in this age are referred to as Dvipada Pashu. Hare Krishna. Take advantage of it. Cheers. There's one new driver. Did you notice? There's one new driver. This is a hymn, but in the morning, he just hits it and he doesn't leave the horn until he gets this whole strip. He's done it like 2-3 days in a row. I think he's envious of the deities. I mean, he's trying to, interfere with their worship. So maybe that's just my speculation. Mm-hmm. When one comes to understand that he is not the body, and therefore is neither fat nor skinny, one attains the topmost form of spiritual realization. When one is not spiritually realized, the bodily conception entangles one in the material world. At the present moment, all human society is laboring under the bodily conception. Therefore, in the Shastras, people in this age are referred to as Dvipada Pashu, two-legged animals. No one can be happy in a civilization conducted by such animals. Our Krishna consciousness movement is trying to raise fallen human society to the status of spiritual understanding. It is not possible for everyone to become immediately self-realized like Jada Bharat. However, as stated in Srimad-Bhagavatam 1-18, Nasta prayushu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya. By spreading the Bhagavata principles, we can raise human society to the platform of perfection. When one is not affected by the bodily conceptions, one can advance to the Lord's devotional service. Nasta prayusha bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavat nyutamash loke bhaktir bhavadinaishtiki. The more we advance our freedom from the bodily conception, the more we are fixed in devotional service, and the more we are happy and peaceful. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya says that those who are too materially affected continue the bodily conception. Such persons are concerned with different bodily symptoms, whereas one freed from bodily conceptions lives without the body, even in the material condition. Text 11. My dear king, you have unnecessarily accused me of being dead, though alive. In this regard, I can only say that this is the case everywhere, because everything material has its beginning and end. As far as you're thinking that you are the king and master, and are thus trying to order me, this is also incorrect, because these positions are temporary. Today, you are a king, and I am your servant, but tomorrow the position may be changed, and you may be my servant, and I your master. These are temporary circumstances created by providence. Purport. The bodily conception is the basic principle of suffering in material existence. In Kali Yuga especially, people are so uneducated that they cannot even understand that the body is changing at every moment, and that the ultimate change is called death. In this life one may be a king, and in the next life one may be a dog, according to karma. The spirit soul is in a deep slumber caused by the force of material nature. He is put in one type of condition and again changed into another type. Without self-realization and knowledge, conditional life continues, and one falsely claims himself a king, a servant, cat, or dog. These are simply different transformations brought about by the supreme arrangement. One should not be misled by such temporary bodily conceptions. Actually, no one is master within the material world, for everyone is under the control of material nature, which is under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Therefore, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the ultimate master. As explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Ekale Ishvara Krishna Ara Savabhritya. The only master is Krishna, and everyone else is his servant. Forgetfulness of our relationship with the Supreme Lord brings about our suffering in the material world. Text 12. My dear king, if you still think that you are the king and that I am your servant, you should order me and I should follow your order. I can then say that this differentiation is temporary and it expands only from usage or convention. I do not see any other cause. In that case, who is the master and who is the servant? Everyone is being forced by the laws of material nature. Therefore, no one is master and no one is servant. Nonetheless, if you think that you are the master and that I am the servant, I shall accept this. Please order me. What can I do for you? Purport. It is said in Srimad-Bhagavatam, Aham mameti. One thinks, I am this body, and in this bodily relationship, he is my master, he is my servant, she is my wife, and he is my son. All these conceptions are temporary due to the inevitable change of body and the arrangement of material nature. We are gathered together like straws floating in the waves of an ocean, straws that are inevitably separated by the laws of the waves. In this material world, everyone is floating on the waves of the ocean of nations. As described by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Miche Mayara Bashe Yachcha Beshe Kachcha Khabu Dububai Jeev Krishna Das E Vishwas Karle Tar Araduganai. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur states that all men and women are floating like straws on the waves of material nature. If they come to the understanding that they are the eternal servants of Krishna, they will put an end to this floating condition. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 3:37, Kama esha krodha esha rajoguna samudbhavaha. Due to the emotive passion, we desire many things, and according to our desire or anxiety, and according to the order of the Supreme Lord, material nature gives us a certain type of body. For some time we play as master or servant, as actors play on the stage under someone else's direction. While we are in the human form, we should put an end to this nonsensical stage performance. We should come to our original constitutional position, known as Krishna consciousness. At the present moment, the real master is material nature. Daiviyesha gunamayi, mama maya, duratyaya. Bhagavad Gita 7:14. Under the spell of material nature, we are becoming servants and masters, but if we agree to be controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His eternal servants, this temporary condition ceases to exist. Text 13. My dear king, you have said, you rascal, you dull, crazy fellow, I am going to chastise you, and then you will come to your senses. In this regard, let me say that although I live like a dull, deaf, and dumb man, I am actually a self-realized person. What will you gain by punishing me? If your calculation is true, and I am a madman, then your punishment will be like beating a dead horse. There will be no effect. When a madman is punished, he is not cured of his madness. Purport. Everyone in this material world is working like a madman under certain impressions falsely acquired in the material condition. For example, a thief who knows that stealing is not good and who knows that it is followed with punishment by a king or by God, who has seen that thieves are arrested and punished by the police, nonetheless steals again and again. This is a sign of madness. Despite repeated punishment, the thief cannot give up his stealing habit. Therefore, the punishment is useless. Text 14. Shukadeva Goswami said, O Maharaj Parikshit, when King Rahugana chastised the exalted devotee Jada Bharat with harsh words, that peaceful, saintly person tolerated it all and replied properly. Nations is due to the bodily conception, and Jada Bharat was not affected by this false conception. Out of his natural humility, he never considered himself a great devotee, and he agreed to suffer the results of his past karma. Like an ordinary man, he thought that by carrying the palanquin, he was destroying the reactions of his past misdeeds. Thinking in this way, he began to carry the palanquin as before. Purport. An exalted devotee of the Lord never thinks that he is a paramahamsa or a liberated person. He always remains a humble servant of the Lord. In all reversed conditions, he agrees to suffer the results of his past life. He never accuses the Lord of putting him into a distressed condition. These are the signs of an exalted devotee. Tattenu kampam susamikshimana. When suffering reversed conditions, the devotee always considers that the reversed conditions are the Lord's concessions. He is never angry with his master. He is always satisfied with the position his master offers. In any case, he continues performing his duty in devotional service. Such a person is guaranteed promotion back home, back to Godhead. As stated in Srimad-Bhagavatam 10:14-8, Tate nukampam susamikshimano bunjana evat mikritam pipakam ridvag vapurbir vidadan namaste jiveti yo mukti pade sadaya bhak. My dear Lord, one who constantly waits for your causeless mercy to be bestowed upon him, and who goes on suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds, offering you respectful obeisances from the core of his heart, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. Text 15. Shukadeva Goswami continued, O best of the Pandu dynasty, Maharaj Parikshit, the king of the Sindhu and Sauvira states, Maharaj Rahugana, had great faith in discussions of the absolute truth. Being thus qualified, he heard from Jada Bharat that philosophical presentation which is approved by all and which slackens the knot in the heart. His material conception of himself as a king was thus destroyed. He immediately descended from his palanquin and fell on the ground with his head at the lotus feet of Jada Bharat, in such a way that he might be excused for his insulting words against the great Brahmana. He then prayed as follows. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 4.2, Lord Krishna says, Evam parampara praptam imam raja shivo viduhu sakaline hamahata yogunashta parantapa. This supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. Through the disciplic succession, the royal order was on the same platform as great saintly persons, Raja Rishis. Formerly, they could understand the philosophy of life and knew how to train the citizens to come to the same standard. In other words, they knew how to deliver the citizens from the entanglement of birth and death. When Maharaj Dasharatha ruled Ayodhya, the great sage Vishwamrita once came to him to take away Lord Ramachandra and Lakshmana to the forest to kill a demon. When the saintly person Vishwamrita came to the court of Maharaj Dasharatha, the king, in order to receive the saintly person, asked him, Ahishtam yat tat punar janma jayaya. He asked the sage whether everything was going on well in his endeavor to conquer the repetition of birth and death. The whole process of Vedic civilization is based on this point. We must know how to conquer the repetition of birth and death. Maharaj Rahugana also knew the purpose of life. Therefore, when Jada Bharat put the philosophy of life before him, he immediately appreciated it. This is the foundation of Vedic society. Learned scholars, brahmanas, saintly persons, and sages who were fully aware of the Vedic purpose advised the royal order how to benefit the general masses, and by their cooperation, the general masses were benefited. Therefore, everything was successful. Maharaj Rahugana attained this perfection of understanding the value of human life. Therefore, he regretted his insulting words to Jada Bharat, and he immediately descended from his palanquin and fell down at the lotus feet of Jada Bharat in order to be excused and to hear from him further about the values of life, known as Brahma Jigyasa, inquiry into the absolute truth. At the present moment, high government officials are ignorant of the values of life. And when saintly persons endeavor to broadcast the Vedic knowledge, the so-called executives do not offer their respectful obeisances, but try to obstruct the spiritual propaganda. Thus one can say that the former kingly government was like heaven, and the present government is like hell. Text 16. King Rahugana said, O Brahmana, you appear to be moving in this world very much covered and unknown to others. Who are you? Are you a learned Brahmana and saintly person? I see that you are wearing a sacred thread. Are you one of those exalted, liberated saints such as Dattatreya and other highly advanced learned scholars? May I ask whose disciple you are? Where do you live? Why have you come to this place? Is your mission in coming here to do good for us? Please let me know who you are. Purport. Maharaj Rahugana was very anxious to receive further enlightenment in Vedic knowledge because he could understand that Jada Bharat belonged to a Brahmana family, either by disciplic succession or by birth in a Brahmana dynasty. As stated in the Vedas, Tad Vijnanartam Sagarum Ibabhigachet. Rahugana was accepting Jada Bharat as a guru, but a guru must prove his position not only by wearing a sacred thread, but by advancing knowledge in spiritual life. It is also significant that Rahugana asked Jada Bharat which family he belonged to. There are two types of families, one according to dynasty and the other according to disciplic succession. In either way, one can be enlightened. The word Shukla refers to a person in the mode of goodness. If one wants to receive spiritual knowledge, one must approach a bona fide Brahmana guru, either in the disciplic succession or in a family of learned Brahmanas. Text 17. My dear sir, I am not at all afraid of the thunderbolt of King Indra, nor am I afraid of the serpentine piercing trident of Lord Shiva. I do not care about the punishment of Yamaraj, the superintendent of death, nor am I afraid of fire, scorching sun, moon, wind, nor the weapons of Kuvera. Yet I am afraid of offending a Brahmana. I am very much afraid of this. Purport. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was instructing Rupa Goswami at the Dashashmedha Ghat in Prayag, he pointed out very clearly the seriousness of offending a Vaishnava. He compared the Vaishnava aparad to Hati Mata, a mad elephant. When a mad elephant enters a garden, it spoils all the fruits and flowers. Similarly, if one offends a Vaishnava, he spoils all his spiritual assets. Offending a Brahmana is very dangerous, and this was known to Maharaja Rahugana. He therefore frankly admitted his fault. There are many dangerous things: thunderbolts, fire, Yamaraja's punishment, the punishment of Lord Shiva's trident, and so forth. But none is considered as serious as offending a Brahmana like Jada Bharat. Therefore Maharaja Rahugana immediately descended from his palanquin and fell flat before the lotus feet of the Brahmana, Jada Bharat, just to be excused. Text 18. My dear sir, it appears that the influence of your great spiritual knowledge is hidden. Factually, you are bereft of all material association and fully absorbed in the thought of the Supreme. Consequently, you are unlimitedly advanced in spiritual knowledge. Please tell me, why are you wandering around like a dullard? O great saintly person, you have spoken words approved by the yogic process, but it is not possible for us to understand what you have said. Therefore, kindly explain it. Purport. Saintly people like Jada Bharat do not speak ordinary words. Whatever they say is approved by great yogis and those advanced in spiritual life. That is the difference between ordinary people and saintly people. The listener must also be advanced to understand the words of such exalted, spiritually advanced people as Jada Bharat. Bhagavad Gita was spoken to Arjuna, not to others. Lord Krishna especially selected Arjuna for instruction and spiritual knowledge because Arjuna happened to be a great devotee and confidential friend. Similarly, great personalities also speak to the advanced, not to Shudras, Vaishyas, women, or unintelligent men. Sometimes it is very risky to give great philosophical instructions to ordinary people. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for the benefit of the fallen souls of Kali Yuga, has given a very nice instrument, the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. The general mass of people, although Shudras and less, can be purified by chanting this Hare Krishna mantra. Then they can understand the exalted philosophical statements of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam. Our Krishna consciousness movement has therefore adopted the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra for the general masses. When people gradually become purified, they are instructed in the lessons of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam. Materialistic people like Stri, Shudra, and Dvijabandhu cannot understand words of spiritual advancement. Yet one can take to the shelter of a Vaishnava, for he knows the art of enlightening even Shudras in the highly elevated subject matter spoken in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Text 19. I consider your good self the most exalted master of mystic power. You know the spiritual science perfectly well. You are the most exalted of all learned sages, and you have descended for the benefit of all human society. You have come to give spiritual knowledge, and you are a direct representative of Kapila Dev, the incarnation of God and the plenary portion of knowledge. I am therefore asking you, O spiritual master, What is the most secure shelter in this world? Purport. As Krishna confirms in Bhagavad Gita, Yoginam api sarvesham madgatenan tadatmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamomataha. Of all yogis, he who abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. Bhagavad Gita 6:47. Jada Bharat was a perfect yogi. He was formerly the emperor Bharata Maharaj, and he was now the most exalted personality among learned sages and the master of all mystic powers. Although Jada Bharat was an ordinary living entity, he had inherited all the knowledge given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kapila Dev. He could therefore be taken directly as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As confirmed by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his stanzas to the spiritual master, Sakshad Tarit Tvena Samasta Shastrayi. An exalted personality like Jada Bharat is as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead because he fully represents the Lord by giving knowledge to others. Jada Bharat, as herein accepted, is the direct representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead because he was imparting knowledge on behalf of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, Maharaja Rahugana concluded that it was appropriate to ask him about Atma Tattva, the spiritual science. Tadvigyanartam Sagarum Eva Bigachet. This Vedic injunction is also confirmed herein. If anyone is at all interested in knowing the spiritual science, Brahma Jigyasa, when he must approach a guru like Jada Bharat. Hare Krishna. Jada Bharat ki jai. Maharaja Rahugana ki jai. Oh, we'll stop there for tonight, for the readings, and ask anybody if they would like to reflect on what we heard, anything stuck in your mind that you want to discuss further or inquire about or whatever. Hare Krishna. Yes, Bharata, I saw his hand first, then Sarva. And turn the thing around to after when he's got the, yeah.
Thank you for the reading. I had a question that wasn't directly connected with what we read, but something I heard, and I was wondering if you could speak on this. Basically, in the Bhagavad Gita we hear about austerity, charity, and penance, and I'm wondering if you can explain the difference between these things and maybe some knowledge on that.
Austerity, charity, and penance. Well, Krishna says that they should never be given up, no matter who you are. You know, we rise early in the morning, we chant our rounds, we follow the regulated principles, we worship the deity, we perform devotional service, and we try to stay in devotional service as much as possible all the time. And no matter who you are, you know, we should do those things. Do you have a specific question?
What's the difference between austerity, charity, and penance?
I just happen to have, just in case anybody's interested, in the answers to that question. It's right here in this Bhagavad Gita spoken by Sri Krishna 5,000 years ago. But it was very pertinent right now, at this moment, because of the question that you asked. There's a few chapters that discuss these things. 17th chapter. Here's the question. of sacrifice. Sacrifice performed according to the directions of Scripture is a matter of duty by those who desire no reward is the nature of goodness. Purport. The general tendency is to offer sacrifice with some purpose in mind. But here it is stated that sacrifice should be performed without any such desire. It should be done as a matter of duty. Take, for example, the performance of rituals in temples or in churches. Generally, they are performed with the purpose of material benefit. But that is not in the mode of goodness. Once you go to a temple or church, as a matter of duty, offer respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and offer flowers and eatables without any purpose of obtaining material benefit. Everyone thinks that there is no use in going to the temple just to worship God. But worship for economic benefit is not recommended in the scriptural injunctions. One should go simply to offer respect to the deity. That will place one in the mode of goodness. It is the duty of every civilized man to obey the injunctions of scriptures and offer respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's goodness. That's sacrifice and goodness. Sacrifice means you do something that is not easy for you to do, something that takes energy and takes, sacrifice. But the sacrifice performed for some material benefit or for the sake of pride, O chief of the bards, you should know to be in the mode of passion. Purport. Sometimes sacrifices and rituals are performed for elevation to the heavenly kingdom or for some material benefits in this world. Such sacrifices or ritualistic performances are considered to be in the mode of passion. And finally, any sacrifice performed without regard for the directions of scriptures, without distribution of prasadam, spiritual food, without chanting of Vedic hymns and remunerations to the priests, and without faith is considered to be in the mode of ignorance. Purport. Faith in the mode of darkness or ignorance is actually faithlessness. Sometimes people worship some demigod just to make money and then spend the money for recreation, ignoring the scriptural injunctions. Such ceremonial shows of religiosity are not accepted as genuine. They are all in the mode of darkness. They produce a demoniac mentality and do not benefit human society. So everyone's sacrificing their energy. Materialists are sacrificing their energy. Spiritualists are sacrificing everyone. Even the beggars in the street in India, they're sacrificing their energy to go out there in the hot sun, or sit there in the hot sun on the marg, on the Govardhan Parikrama marg. But how we do that sacrifice, with what mentality, with what purpose. But in the beginning of the 18th chapter, Krishna says that these things, sacrifice, penance, and charity, should not be given up. Then, the next verses are discussing austerity, what they are. Am I going in the right direction?
I think so.
Okay, I'll continue then. Unless we have an objection, anybody in the audience. Austerity of the body consists in worship of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmanas, the spiritual master, and superiors like the father and mother, and in cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence. Purport. The Supreme Godhead here explains the different kinds of austerity and penance. First, he explains the austerities and penance practiced by the body. One should offer, or learn to offer, respect to God, or to the demigods, the perfect, qualified brahmanas, and the spiritual master, and superiors like mother, father, or any other person who is conversant with Vedic knowledge. These should be given proper respect. One should practice cleansing oneself externally and internally. And he should learn to become simple in behavior. He should not do anything which is not sanctioned by the scriptural injunctions. He should not indulge in sex outside of married life, for sex is sanctioned in the scripture only in marriage, not otherwise. This is called celibacy. There are penances and these are penances and austerities as far as the body is concerned. Now, next is
Charity.
No.
And the ignorance.
Austerity of?
Mind.
No. Speech.
Oh.
It goes from gross to subtle. Austerity of speech consists in speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others. And also in regularly reciting Vedic literature. Purport. One should not speak in such a way as to agitate the minds of others. Of course, when a teacher speaks, he can speak the truth for the instruction of his students. But such a teacher should not speak to those who are not his students, if he will agitate their minds. This is penance as far as talking is concerned. Besides that, one should not talk nonsense. The process of speaking in spiritual circles is to say something upheld by the scriptures. One should at once quote from scriptural authority to back up what he is saying. At the same time, such talk should be very pleasurable to the ear. By such discussions, one may derive the highest benefit and elevate human society. There is a limitless stock of Vedic literature, and one should study this. This is called penance of speech. And there's another nice statement in the first canto, 4th chapter, 1st verse, in the purport, which Srila Prabhupada explains what realization is. And it's also related to this idea of speech and pleasant speech. He says that one shouldn't try to outdo the teacher or the spiritual master. One should always be, what's the word, respectful and honor. One shouldn't try to show off one's learning in order to make oneself better than the spiritual master. This is very common now, especially in academic circles. The students take a PhD as a guru, and then they work very hard to get a place where they can say something that makes them higher than the teacher, and then get a better situation. So then it also says that, one should speak in a way that's favorable in one's own words, in such a way that the audience will be moved and change and get it. That's called realization. So we don't make things up. We become loyal to the teaching. We don't change it, but we speak it in such a way as it's favorable and pleasant to hear, and that people can receive it. But sometimes you do that and it still doesn't work, and you just got to keep on plugging. Okay, then we come to the mind. Yes. Everybody here's got a mind? Where is it right now? Should we write it down? We could pass out notes and everybody could write down where their minds are. What are they thinking about? Hare Krishna. Okay. Manak prasada somyatvam, and satisfaction. Wow. How is satisfaction and austerity? I thought austerity was something you did that was difficult to do, made you feel uncomfortable. How satisfaction can be an austerity? Anybody got an idea?
To be satisfied with what you have.
But why? I mean, satisfaction is, how can satisfaction be an austerity? Because austerity means you take some trouble, you take a bath when it's cold, or you don't speak if it's not. How is satisfaction an austerity?
What you have may not be very impressive by karma or something.
No, sir, it's
You may
like...
compare yourself to someone else, like they have a better car.
No,
So
it's an austerity because the nature of the mind in the material world is always to be dissatisfied. Chanchalam himana Krishna, Krishna says to Arjuna, or Arjuna says to Krishna rather, Chanchala himana. It's always flickering, it's disturbing. It's like trying to catch the wind. So therefore, to be satisfied in your mind is an austerity. Let's finish that's only one thing. Satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purification of one's existence are the austerities of the mind. Purport. To make the mind austere is to detach it from sense gratification. It should be so trained that it can be always thinking of doing good for others. The best training of the mind is gravity and thought. One should not deviate from Krishna consciousness and must always avoid sense gratification. To purify one's nature is to become Krishna conscious. Satisfaction of the mind can be obtained only by taking the mind away from thoughts of sense enjoyment. The more we think of sense enjoyment, the more the mind becomes dissatisfied. In the present age, we unnecessarily engage the mind in so many different ways for sense gratification. And so there is no possibility of the mind's becoming satisfied. The best course is to divert the mind to the Vedic literature, which is full of satisfying stories, as in the Puranas and the Mahabharata. One can take advantage of this knowledge and thus become purified. The mind should be devoid of duplicity, and one should think of the welfare of all. Silence means that one is always thinking of self-realization. Control of the mind means detaching the mind from sense enjoyment. One should be straightforward in his dealings and thereby purify his existence. All these qualities together constitute austerity and mental activities, especially if in your mind you're thinking something about someone, but you're not saying it. Then it causes the mind to become disturbed. Yes.
Is that only if you're thinking something bad about someone?
Well, I mean, it's worse if you're thinking something bad about someone, of course. If you think something bad about someone, you're not saying it, especially if you keep thinking it and don't say it for a long time, then there's a tension between you and that person. The way to relieve that tension is kind of like, pressure cooker. But you got to be careful who you reveal that to. You have to say that to the right person, to the person you have affection for, the person you can trust. But if you can't say things to people in your mind that's about whatever it is to anybody, then gradually it builds up, and you go a little funny, and then you can't function naturally, normally. Relationships are not sweet. Weather changed today. Yeah, something else? Yes, Guru Bhakti, please.
So I didn't understand, is there a relationship, Rahugana is saying that he's a representative, Jada Bharata is a representative of Lord Kapila Dev. So is there a relationship there, or he's just saying as the Supreme Person, he's a representative as the Supreme Person? Okay.
Yeah.
Not a particular reason he's choosing.
No, he's connected. Because he's connected.
How?
By disciplic succession. By dynasty. By dynasty.
Okay. So there is a disciplic succession.
Yes, there is a disciplic succession.
Okay.
Remember, it said there's two kinds of disciplic succession. One is by family, and one is by disciplic succession.
So this one is the by disciplic succession.
Yes. But all of these personalities we're hearing about, they're all in a line from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead is appeared within that line, and then the whole line becomes auspicious. Even if it's not a direct, maybe further back in the line, but
I was thinking that India is called Bharata, and outsiders sometimes didn't recognize the greatness of Indian philosophy and culture. So it kind of reminded me of the way that King Rahugana didn't at first recognize Jada Bharata's wisdom and saintly qualities, but then he finally did. So it's just kind of a comment that the British and others have sort of underestimated India.
Oh, to say the least.
Through Prabhupada's books, he's reestablishing the greatness of Bharata.
Prabhupada said that India is got vision, but of course nowadays they're economically much better off than before. But before, the West was very powerful economically, but they didn't have vision. So the blind man gets on top of the blind man and tells him where to go, and that way the East and the West can go together. That's why it's an important thing to diversify.
Is there a difference in terms of austerity and penance? What is the basic difference? Just in the use of the terms.
Same.
Same?
Basically they're the same. Yes, sir.
In hearing the reading in chapter 17, it still seems to me a little unclear what's the difference between sacrifice and austerity.
Well, it's in relationship to the activity. Sacrifice generally means to offer something. Austerity means to, either not do something or do something that's not so easy to do. It's a slight difference. It's a subtle difference. It's not a gross difference. They're both, austerity, penance, and sacrifice. They're all in the same category of activities. It's a subtle difference. You sacrifice your energy, in order to get something, whether it be spiritual or devotional or material or whatever. Austerity is, you do something that feels inconvenient in order to get something better, in the future. Penance is generally not to do something, or to do something like When it's cold, you take your bath in the morning, even if it's cold. That's penance. It's very subtle. The differences are subtle, but the same principle is there. It's to do something that's going to purify you, that's going to elevate you rather than degrade you. Yes, Uncle John.
And what you were saying about that, I mean, something could very well be an austerity, a penance, or a sacrifice, all in the same thing.
That's a good point. As a matter of fact, what's penance for one person may be not a penance for another.
Like something I could have a sacrifice. I could sacrifice something. It could be an austerity, and then I could be doing it as a penance, all in the same.
They're all related.
Yeah.
It's all three of them are related, definitely. But like we were saying, what's austere for one person may be not austere for another person.
Right. Somebody's level of austerity could be elevated, and somebody that could just not eat a chocolate bar, that's an austerity for them.
Or to live in a solitary place for one person may be a great austerity, and to another person it's not at all. They like it.
Right.
And another person may feel uncomfortable in social situations, and another person may like it. So it's not a mechanical thing that's the same for everybody. Depends on our position in life, in society, depends on our spiritual position, depends on our social situation. Like the duty of a sannyasi, will be different. The sacrifice will be different than the duty of a householder. The householder is meant to do charity. The Brahmin is also meant to do charity, but it's not the main thing. They're not supposed to serve others, the Brahmanas. So like that, there's a system of these things, charity and penance and austerity. There's a system, and it depends on our nature and what our position in life is, and the direction we're getting from. Because that's another point that's being made in all of it. It's a theme throughout the whole thing. If you're doing something just whimsically, then you're not supposed to offer that. If it's not according to scriptural injunction, if it's not according to the rules and laws of nature, and you just offer it just out of whim, then it may be not acceptable. May not get the same result. In the Vaishnava tradition, we always check what we're going to do. I don't know about you guys, but I have always 2 or 3 people that I always check before I don't do anything on my own. I can tell you who they are. Vaishya Prabhu, Shivaram Maharaj, Giriraj Maharaj, and a couple of others. And I always check with them before I do anything.
You were saying earlier about like this pressure cooker. Like when you're in relationships with other people and you're thinking, okay, something, I don't know, like this person is not doing something right or whatever, and you don't have to necessarily like come out and say everything that's in your mind.
Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, it's a superior thing to do if you're going through something and you work it out. That's a superior thing to do, because then you don't bother anyone else. But if you can't do that, and if you just sit on it, and you're in trouble, but you're too proud to say it, you're afraid to say it. You have to have somebody. That's the point. You got to have somebody. Everybody's got to have somebody that they trust and that they have a deep relationship with, that they can run things by, bounce off of. Everybody has to have that. If you don't, then you're living in a pressure cooker. And eventually it will affect what you do and how you do. And then at the end of your life, you'll be in anxiety when you leave your body. And that's what it's all about. It's all about getting ourselves to the point where our minds are peaceful and we're comfortable because we're doing the things we're supposed to be doing, so that when it comes time and we're not attached to the things that we have and the position we have and all these things. We're not overly attached to things. And then when it comes time to leave the body, that should dovetail all of our lives, not just at the time of death. It should, all our lives, we should cultivate this detachment and transferring our love to Krishna, transferring our attachment to Krishna. Because that's all Krishna's asking for us to do. Basically, it's very simple. He wants us to think about Him. He wants us to think about Him in love. If we do that, and if we're very interested in Him and think about Him and what He's doing and what we want to do and all those things, that's the supreme sacrifice, that's why at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Sarva Dharman Parityajya, Mamekam Charanam Praja. Because all these other things, penances and sacrifices, Krishna is giving instructions to Arjuna all the way along. He appeals to him in different ways. First of all, it's philosophical, difference between matter and spirit, and analysis. And then he says, okay, Arjuna, if you don't do this, then what's going to happen? You're a big guy, and everybody's going to think you're just a coward, and that's going to make you feel really bad because you're a Kshatriya. And your nature anyway is a Kshatriya, so you're going to fight with somebody. If you don't fight here, you're going to fight with somebody because that's your nature. So he likes that. He keeps giving instructions, and gradually it comes to just think of me. And then he says, all the other things that I've taught you, Sarva Dharman Prajaja, give all those other things up, and just, surrender to me only, alone. And then everything will work out. And that's after he showed him the battle of Kurukshetra and the fact that he's going to win. And everybody's going to die, except for him and his brothers and a few other people. Everyone else died in the battlefield of Kurukshetra.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but if we can't do that, then there's those very important 4 verses in the 12th chapter. Think of me 24/7 without thinking of anything else. If you can't do that, then if you can't do that, then follow the principles of Bhakti Yoga. If you can't do that, then work for me. That means directly work for Krishna. If you can't do that, then? Huh? Yes, live self-sufficiently. Give charity. Give your service to community, society, nation, hospitals. Because by giving up the fruits, your senses become more. And then if you can't do that, then? No. Before that? Cultivate knowledge. And then better than cultivating knowledge is? Meditation. In this case, meditation means? It means contemplating the knowledge. And then better than that is?
The fruits?
Yes. Giving the fruits up. Don't be attached to the fruits. And so it's a continuum, so you can connect everything in a sense, but the key is, and Krishna mentions it and Prabhupada mentions it in every one of those purports, that the key is if you're doing it in a way that will take you to the next stage. Then it will take you gradually to thinking of Krishna all the time. And that's what Krishna wants, and that's the goal. Especially when you come to the last 3, the working for Krishna, following the regulated principles of Bhakti Yoga, you'll develop an attachment for Krishna, and you'll want to be with Krishna, and eventually you'll think about him all the time. And the degree that you can think about Krishna, the percentage of your time you can actually think about Krishna, that's the measure of how advanced you are in Krishna consciousness. That's how much love you have for Krishna. It's how much you are remembering him in love. And with that, folks, I got to go because I got to get my offering out because it's due tonight, and I'm not going to go to the book until I get it. Thank you so much for everyone for coming. Thank you everyone out there in cyberspace. Jad Bharat ki jai. The teachings of Jad Bharat ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna.